Let's start with WWE and the announcement that WWE is bringing Survivor Series to the Allstate Arena in Chicago the Saturday after Thanksgiving on November 25th. Combo tickets go on sale to the public Friday, July 21st, with a pre-sale on July 19th. And that's combo tickets only for now, not individual tickets. I believe the last WWE event at the Allstate was last year's Hell in a Cell, with Cody and his torn pec against Seth Rollins. It'll be the third time Survivor Series was held there, the first being way back in 1989, when it was still called the Rosemont Horizon, and then again 30 years later in 2019. AEW has been running Chicago, not the Allstate Arena, but they've been running Chicago for Dynamite the night before Thanksgiving, dating back to 2019. 2020 being the exception because of COVID. They were still running shows at Daly's Place. We'll see if Chicago gets both shows the same week, or if WWE running Chicago changes Tony Khan's plans now, because they have yet to announce what their Thanksgiving week plans are going to be. But Chicago, man, Chicago's eating well. When it comes to big wrestling events, they're getting all out in September. I know Impact, for those who watch Impact is running its Bound for Glory event there in October, and now Survivor Series in November. No mention of War Games in the announcement. Now, I enjoyed War Games last year. I was very happy to finally see it used on the main roster. I've been talking about it for years. I'd like to see it again, but I'm okay if they don't, because they don't think they have the right match or the right story for it. Last year they kind of fell into it. It was perfect. The Bloodline against all the people the Bloodline have wronged, and they still had the Sami Zayn story that they were able to kind of wrap around it. So it made sense. Now, who's to say we don't get War Games on another pay-per-view when they do have the right story for it? I think it's a good fit for Survivor Series. But it doesn't mean that War Games has to be married to Survivor Series. Look, I don't even know that there'll be a Bloodline left by November. But they have a lot of factions in the company right now, mostly trios. The first War Games match in NXT was back in 2017, had 3 teams of 3, as opposed to 2 teams of 5. Right now they have, if you look at the rosters, they have the Judgment Day, they have Imperium, the Brawling Brutes, and the OC. And you could throw the LWO in there, but they have more than 3 in the LWO, technically, 3 men. That would be pretty lame. You would just feel like a mid-card War Games. I'm just saying, if they wanted to go with existing factions and groups, honestly, outside of the Bloodline of the Judgment Day, and I like Imperium and I like the LWO and all that, but outside of the Bloodline and maybe the Judgment Day, everybody else feels like a mid-card act on this show, as far as the groups that they have. And War Games, if you're going to do War Games, then it should headline the show. Now, last year, the Bloodline, they were running roughshod over everybody. It made sense for it to be the Bloodline against the world. This year, the way things stand, I'm not so sure. The traditional Survivor Series elimination format, it just doesn't work anymore. As far as doing, if you're going to do that up and down the card, it doesn't work. I mean, you could do one each, one traditional Survivor Series match for the men, one traditional match for the women. But you can't fill up an entire show with nothing but elimination matches. Now, they could resurrect the brand supremacy stuff. And honestly, with Vince McMahon being in the weeds a little bit more now than he was maybe a year ago, wouldn't at all shock me to see all of a sudden the brand supremacy stuff that Triple H got rid of suddenly reemerge. I'm not a big fan of it. But if they get NXT involved, which is a possibility this year because they're really trying to put a lot of focus on NXT. They're having more main roster influence on NXT. I think it's a very real possibility that for the first time in many years, we could see NXT involved in Survivor Series if they do go back to some kind of brand warfare type stuff. The brand supremacy stuff with champions facing each other in a bunch of non-title matches like they used to do is stupid. It's stupid. And we got a few good matches out of it. That's how we got Brock Lesnar against AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar against Daniel Bryan. But year after year of doing a bunch of non-title matches with the champions is lame. And I don't want to see them go back to that. But maybe doing the brand supremacy stuff in a War Games format across all 3 brands, that could be interesting with something at stake. Whatever that might be, something at stake for the winning brand. But we're still over 4 months away from the show. We'll have to wait and see what they announce once we get closer. Just because War Games was not mentioned in the initial announcement does not mean that it will not be part of the show.